My ex-fiancé divorced me after 7 years because he didn't feel the spark in our relationship anymore, but I think he found a fire somewhere else because not even months later he was with a prettier, younger version of myself, and now I feel like literal trash. Hi guys. I know it's probably hard to believe given how nauseatingly pathetic I sound right now, but before this happened, I really felt like a confident and content human being. Almost all of my current friends are mutual friends with my ex-fiancé, so I don't want to embroil them in this drama or compel anyone to choose sides or feel uncomfortable. So I guess I'm trying to turn to this community for solace and guidance because I've read a great deal of mature and grounded advice here. I hope this sounds somewhat coherent as I've currently locked myself in a conference room and shut the blinds so no one can see me cry as I type this. I was with my ex-fiancé for 7 years. He is the only romantic partner I've ever truly loved. I was completely, head over heels in love with him. Even now, after all this, I still feel that way about him. He is charming, goofy, kind, quick-witted, interesting, ambitious, and gorgeous. We got engaged 2 years ago, but we're not in a rush to get married. About a year ago, we began to seriously contemplate trying for a baby. We had lived together happily for 6 years, we had done all the traveling and partying we wanted to in our 20s, and we were excited to start our family. Over the next 6 months, he was much busier than normal, but I didn't think anything was wrong. I did my best to alleviate any extra stress he had, though I was experiencing some extra pressure at work too, by taking over all the housework and errands, helping him organize and pack for trips, and just being understanding when he would work very late or need to leave for a week or two. We didn't spend as much time together during that period, and I missed him a lot, but I thought we were still happy. When the 6 months were over, our schedules reverted back to normal. I felt relieved until I started to notice him becoming more distant despite that fact that we finally had more time together. He started going on his phone more frequently when we were together and seemed to be more protective of his phone. I'm not generally a jealous person and I trusted him completely, so I didn't think much of it. Then one day, after another month had passed, I brought up the topic of trying for a baby as we discussed. I could immediately tell something was wrong. He was quiet for a while and then he unleashed a flood. He said he was unhappy with our relationship and had been for some time. He said that he cared about me deeply but that the spark in our relationship had died and that he tried to convince himself he could live without that spark but had ultimately decided that he couldn't. He said I had done nothing wrong and in fact was the perfect partner, but that didn't change the fact that he couldn't shake this nagging feeling that I wasn't the one for him. He said that he didn't want to hurt me but that he couldn't condemn himself to a lifetime of settling for someone that wasn't his dream girl, even though he didn't know if his dream girl existed. He said he was sorry but he couldn't live a lie anymore. I don't think I said a single word as he was telling me all this because I just felt so utterly shocked and blindsided. I just stood there, staring and listening and crying silently. When he finished, all I could utter was something like, "Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't know, do you still love me?" He paused for a while and then said that he loved me but wasn't in love with me anymore. We proceeded to spend the whole night discussing his feelings and our relationship, until we were both so exhausted we couldn't cry anymore and the sun was coming up. He said he was sorry again, and it was probably best if he stayed at a friend's place, so he packed up some stuff and left. That was about 5 months ago. We never really talked in person again. His brother and his best friend came over that weekend to get the rest of his stuff and I just left while they were packing because I couldn't stand to be there. I felt so shocked and numb and traumatized and tired that I didn't even cry much. I couldn't really process what was happening as I went through the motions of moving out and explaining the situation to my family. When I finally moved into my new place and sat alone with my boxes, I completely broke down. I could not stop crying and dry heaving. I ended up using 5 vacation days to take off a week of work, which really irked my manager. I could not get out of bed. I barely ate, living off this old tub of peanut butter. I looked through all our old pictures and tried to figure out where it all went wrong. Then for 4 months, I tried my best to move on. I deleted all my social media apps so I wouldn't have to see him. I dove into work. I ramped up my hobbies. I exercised to keep my mind occupied. I met with friends and family and pretended everything was okay. I started going to my therapist again, which helped a bit. I finally thought I could see the light at the end of the tunnel. Then a month ago, I ran into a mutual friend from college. She said it was really sad to see we weren't together anymore, and surprising to see he'd moved on so fast. I told her I wasn't keeping up with him anymore but that I was doing okay. When I got home, even though I knew it was a terrible idea, I re-downloaded Instagram and went to his profile. His latest picture was him at his cousin's wedding with his arm around a gorgeous girl. All the old pictures of him and I were gone from his profile. Again, I knew it was a terrible, self-destructive idea. But I went to the girl's profile and Googled her. She is literally a younger, smarter, prettier, and better version of myself. We both studied at the same university but she completed a prestigious program which I was rejected from. We both have green eyes and brown hair, but she is far prettier and legitimately looks like a model. We are both thin and fit, but she has an amazing hourglass figure and looks far more stylish than me and has tens of thousands of followers, even though she's not an influencer or whatnot. In fact, we both work at the same company. I'm pretty sure my ex met her through work, but she landed a job in a prestigious division right out of undergrad and likely makes more money than me. She is an improved version of me, 7 years younger. And the love of my life is dating her. For the past month, I've been spiraling. I can't stop stalking my ex-fiancé and this girl. I look at her Instagram every day and torture myself with her gorgeous pictures. She's posted a dozen pictures with my ex over the past few months and he looks so happy, healthy, and fit. They've gone on trips together, he's brought her to his hometown, and he's even posted a picture of them with a mushy caption, which he never did when we were together. I have no evidence and I don't think my ex would do this, but I now suspect he was at least interested in her while we were still together. She started at the company about a year ago. I'm so paranoid of running into them. I can recognize that my behavior is obsessive and masochistic, and I've deleted Instagram and told myself I'm not going to do this anymore, only to wake up the next day and re-download the app and do it again. My therapist has been trying to help, but I just cannot move past this. I'm stuck in this mental loop of self-loathing and self-pity, this crazy mix of extreme sadness and latent anger. I feel so incredibly low, worthless, used up, discarded, and suddenly, so incredibly old. I know that comparison is the thief of joy. I know that I am objectively still young enough to move on. I know that social media is a highlight reel and their relationship may not be perfect. I know that this girl has done nothing wrong to me. I know that my ex deserves to find his dream girl. But none of this knowledge helps soften the fact that I thought that by this time this year, I would be pregnant with the love of my life, and instead, I'm alone and he's found someone better. Please, if you've ever experienced something similar, share your words of wisdom. Or commiserate with me. I don't know. I just feel so worthless and alone. Update. Hi again, guys. It's been about 3 months since I posted about my struggle to move past my 7-year relationship with my ex-fiancé. While I cringe when I think about the pathetic state I was in when I wrote that post, sobbing alone in that conference room, I was stunned by the empathetic, mature, and helpful advice I received from members of this subreddit. These past few months have been an absolute roller coaster, and I thought I owed this subreddit an update given how much solace and guidance you guys gave me during some of my darkest days. I don't think things would have worked out nearly as well if I had continued to bottle up those festering emotions and isolate myself, so I'm grateful for every single person who commented and messaged me. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So, here's what happened. The night I made that post, I finally blocked my ex-fiancé and his girlfriend on Instagram, as many of you suggested. I think actually verbalizing how obsessive and masochistic my behavior was, instead of keeping it all inside, and finally feeling validated in my emotional reactions after reading your sympathetic comments, instead of feeling alone and crazy, clicked something in my brain. I resolved to break out of that self-destructive loop, to stop torturing myself with their perfect pictures and reclaim a modicum of self-respect. It was an incredible relief to not be constantly following the impulse to view their new pictures and give myself some time to heal instead of picking at that scab every single day. That weekend, I decided to reconnect with my family and friends and stop pretending that I was handling the breakup flawlessly. They were incredibly compassionate, though also shocked that I had been hiding my dark feelings so well, and it was like I'd instantly rebuilt my support network. I didn't realize how emotionally isolated I had become until I was able to be honest and open with people in my life. I did continue to avoid talking to friends who were mutual friends with my ex because I didn't want to put anyone in an awkward position, but I was able to reconnect with a few of my other friends, and I took the initiative to finally make some fun plans. Getting out of the house to enjoy brunches, hikes, and shows with my friends over the past few months has been incredibly beneficial for my mental health. Just being in new environments and focusing on people other than my ex was therapeutic, even for someone who tends towards introversion like myself. Per your suggestions, I also decided to try out another therapist. I did find my original therapist somewhat helpful, but I also felt like he was not able to relate to some of the nuances in my issues given that he was in his late 50s, so we had a bit of a generational gap. My new therapist is incredibly compatible with me, and instantly understood the intricacies of my problems. She has helped considerably with addressing the roots of my insecurities and was able to validate and analyze my feelings in a much more intimate way. If you are struggling to find therapy useful, I highly recommend shopping around a bit for a more compatible therapist. Therapy is certainly not one size fits all. Another popular suggestion from you guys was finding a job at another company, away from my ex-fiancé and his girlfriend. I didn't think that would be possible since the job market in my field is not great at the moment, but I began actively searching for other positions. I brushed up my resume, filled out a couple applications, and even surprisingly secured an interview. Then out of the blue, someone above me in my division quit to join a competitor. The senior managers were quite eager to fill his role quickly, so they decided to go with an internal hire. And after 5 or 6 rounds of interviews, God, I absolutely dread interviews, I got the job. I'm so grateful for this promotion. Not only is the salary substantially better, but the hours are actually more consistent as well. It's crazy, I feel like the momentum of my life has shifted so quickly. And I finally have an office. It's tiny, but I really enjoy it. The only downside was this promotion also meant I would have to continue working in the same building, albeit a very large building, as my ex. And as I left work before Christmas, the moment I'd been dreading came. I ran into my ex as I was leaving the office. We exchanged a few pleasantries and he complimented my new haircut. I thanked him, wished him well, and said I had to hurry to catch the next train. I wish I could say I felt cool and collected, but I was so nervous to see him again for the first time in like 6 months that I was almost shaking. On the commute home, I calmed down and actually thought, hey, that wasn't so bad. He looked good, but I didn't feel a rush of sadness or desire or anything. I mostly just felt awkward, like we'd become strangers again. I didn't feel that familiar impulse to stalk his Instagram and actually felt happy to see he was doing okay since I'd cared for him for so many years. I felt like at last, I was really moving forward. The next day, I woke up to a dozen messages from my ex-fiancé. They started at around 2 a.m. and were slightly incoherent in parts, so I'm guessing he was a bit drunk when he sent them. They were all long walls of text, which surprised me because he's not typically big on verbalizing his emotions. He wrote that he hadn't been able to stop thinking about me since we ran into each other outside the office, that he was sad that we weren't friends anymore because I still felt like his best friend, and that he regretted how everything went down. He said he questioned if he'd made a huge mistake in a moment of weakness and screwed his whole life up, and that he couldn't help but regret it all when he saw me. He apparently noticed that I blocked him on Instagram, which I found funny given how intensely I had been stalking his Instagram, and said that made him really sad. I gathered from his messages that he'd likely broken up with the woman I'd seen on his Instagram because he said that he felt like he had been searching for some ideal woman who doesn't exist, and that he wanted to reignite our spark after failing to find that same spark with other people. I'm not going to lie, it was shocking to read his texts, and I was trembling and struggling to process a lot of it at first. Part of me wanted impulsively to give him another chance, but after taking a day to mull over his words, I ended up feeling like he was less sorry that he'd lost our relationship and more sorry that the greener pastures he sought weren't quite as green as he'd imagined. I tried to respond kindly but firmly, saying that I really treasured and appreciated our relationship, but that I felt like I could no longer trust him to the same degree I once did, and that I felt like it would be confusing and painful for us to become friends in the near future. I told him how hurt I felt when he blindsided me after promising that nothing was wrong, and how I struggled for a long time to figure out what was missing in our relationship, but ultimately felt that as long as he thought the missing part was so crucial that he wanted to leave after all those years together, then we probably aren't meant to be together. I wished him the best. He didn't respond to my messages. I was a bit shaken by the whole thing, but I proceeded to enjoy my holiday break with my family and even elected to go to my friend's New Year's Eve party, which I was considering skipping. Well, I'm super glad I didn't skip the party because I ended up meeting a wonderful man there. He's funny, intelligent, cute, interesting, compassionate, and is eager to settle down and have kids after also somewhat recently exiting a long-term relationship. We've gone on 3 dates so far, and at the risk of sounding too enthusiastic, they've been the best dates of my life. We want to take it slow since we were both in long-term relationships a year ago, but we've been stunned by how compatible our personalities and interests and goals are, and frankly, we're also both quite keen to start a family as soon as possible. So while I'm trying not to be overly confident in this relationship, I'm also super excited to see where it goes. In conclusion, thanks in large part to the advice I received 3 months ago in this subreddit, I've emerged from a very dark place and am now cautiously optimistic about my future for the first time in a long time.